I want to cover real quick how the bond beam is formed on top of the cob wall after the cob wall is fully constructed. So the best option, in my opinion, from my experience so far, is using the forming system. So what you do is you set up your forms as you create the last layer of cob on the wall, and you leave your forms up. The forms are this blue, represented by the blue lines here. So they're clasped to the sides of the cob wall. And what this allows you to do is to easily set up your bond beam concrete forms on the top of your cob forms. So this way you get your bond beam the exact same width as your cob wall. So the bond beam is flush to the cob wall. And you'll see in the other example here with the hand sculpted cob wall, it's much harder to get the bond beam formed flush to the cob wall. Most of the time, or at least the easiest way to do in this case, is to set your bond beam concrete forms on top of the existing cob wall that you've hand sculpted. But the only problem with this is your bond beam is inset onto the cob wall, so you have a slight little lip there on both sides. So for example, your cob wall might be 18 inches wide, but because you have to inset the bond beam forms, your bond beam might end up only as 15 inches wide, for example. So there are ways you can bring these forms out flush, so your bond beam is flush to the cob wall, but you have to have some kind of a supporting system to hold them up out here. Whereas with the form system, you do have those existing supports on the exterior sides of the wall. And then here, if you want to skip the concrete bond beam entirely, I know some people don't want to go through that step, you can do a wooden bond beam where you double up 2 pieces of lumber, dimensional lumber. So this would be about 3 inches thick, and of course you would have some kind of a threaded rod coming up through the cob wall, and then you can bolt it down tight with the threaded rod on top of the cob wall. So these are the 3 main options. I really like this system for a lot of reasons, which I've talked about in other videos, using the form system to build cob walls. But one of the other advantages is that it makes it really easy to set up your bond beam forms right on top, flush to the edge of the cob wall.